regional water, so you got that covered. And then I need a Casper area Chamber of Commerce alternate. Bruce said that he would do that, and that's you as the lead, but Bruce said he would do the alternate. I am going to beg, borrow, and steal, and wonder if Kaneen would think about the Natrona County Health Department. Would you think about that? Okay. That would be helpful if you could do that. And then I was going to ask you, Mike, if you wanted to do Pnz Liaison. You want to do that?
Okay.
So what that would do is, I know you just step down until this finishes. You can go to those meetings as a liaison, and just go ahead and.
And actually, they're going to keep me on the commission too.
Oh, you're gonna stay.
Oh, then
you're gonna stay on it.
I'll
You'll stay. Okay, perfect. Never mind.
Damn it.
Perfect. I think that was it. Carter is going to be the advanced Casper lead on that, and so he'll be going to those. It's in years past it has been generally the city manager, so we go ahead and put him back on there because I think it'd be a good opportunity for our city manager on advanced Casper to do those.
He's speaking at their next quarterly breakfast in a couple weeks as well.
Awesome. Good.
You are?
No.
Carter is.
I'm not qualified.
I don't know anyone. I think that's all. So it looks like we would have that. The health department Kaneen meets on the third Thursday at 5:30. But I know you were on it for quite some time.
Which will be next Thursday, actually. Right?
And it's only for a short period.
I think so. It is.
Next Tuesday at 4 is chamber.
I'm an alternate. I only go when you can.
Oh, it's the third
Okay.
Thursday?
So if you're never going to make one of those, just let me know and I'll go.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Any questions about boards and commissions, just for Friel's boards that he was on? Anything like that? Questions, concerns? If for some reason something's not jiving or something's happening, let me know. I know we only have a few months. I know that'll put you in a few months with the health department, but that way at least we have somebody there to jump in there. And you've done it before, and you understand, and so I feel like you could jump right in. Okay. Thanks, Kaneen. Appreciate it. Okay. Anything else on meeting follow-up or anything from last week that we did talk? Okay, Carter.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Our first item today is demonstrated on your screen here, and will be certainly aided in our conversation with Ms. Scroggins, who is here tonight as well. The basic proposal is that a portion of the city's trail system would be used for installments just like you see on the screen, with maintenance provided by Lisa's team as well. So from our standpoint, it's a pretty, non-responsible matter for us to be concerned about as it relates to city staff time or financial resources or anything of the sort. And so from that standpoint, I would say it sounds like a pretty good relationship, but for further detail and direction, if we could turn the time over to Ms. Scroggins, that'd be great.
Lisa.
Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Council, for allowing me a few minutes to share with you. I'm just going to add a caveat at the beginning. I'm just coming out of COVID, and they talk about COVID foggy brain, and it certainly exists. And some of you know me and know me that when I talk and present, I really like to present off the cuff, and it's more genuine, and you can communicate a lot better. But that's not my reality this week, so I've got some notes. But thank you for considering this proposal from the library. I just want to give you a little background where we got to this point to begin with. So last fall, the Wyoming Humanities Council had several really great grant opportunities available across the state. And the library saw the opportunity to bring a story walk to Natrona County. And Natrona County doesn't currently have any kind of a story walk or an outdoor exhibit of this level, and this would be a permanent exhibit. So this is something we have long wanted to pursue, and with this opportunity with funding, kind of that atypical funding, they had this historic amount of funding because of COVID and all these dynamics, we had an opportunity to jump on that. So I reached out to Angela at the Platte River Trails Trust and talked to her about it and kind of vetted the idea with her and got a letter of support from them for our grant. And yay, we were funded. And so that is taking care of the lion's share of the expenses for this. It's not everything, and so we are really fortunate that we have the Natrona County Public Library Foundation, and they support us and all of our programming financially, and so that's where the rest of the funding for this is coming from. And we're looking forward to the city walking alongside us and providing us a space for this exhibit. So this is the only slide I have. I think this is all you need to see. It kind of shows you what this is. This is a great opportunity to have parents and families join together in the beautiful outdoors. I mean, Casper is known for its beautiful outdoors, and really capitalize on that during the times of the year where families can get out and move. It's a great way to be physically healthy and mentally stimulating at the same time. Pause for breath. I can't breathe. So we have reached out to a vendor. They are a leader in outdoor exhibits like this, and I believe the name is Barking Dog Exhibits. And they are masters at this. And so this is a very similar design to what we would be doing. We have already purchased and we have received, they're in storage right now at the library, 20 stanchions. And they are all, now I'm going to go to my notes, powder coated aluminum, I believe. And they are constructed that they come together with two pieces and they sandwich the pages of a book. So what is a story walk? I mean, it is what you see here. We take a children's picture book because the target audience is our youngest literary learners in the community and their families, and a way to bring them together, promote learning and outdoors. So we take a book and we deconstruct it, and then we put it page by page along this walkway. This does several things. On the walk, it promotes active, engaging discussion of whatever you've just read or seen. These books will be vetted through the Natrona County Library staff, and we are specifically looking for universal appeal and non-controversial materials. So it could be, we were hoping to be able to get this in before the duck derby, and there was a book about rubber ducks. That would have been great, right? So it's going to be very inconsequential, but very strong literacy skill building materials. Excuse me. I failed to mention, I said I was making the notes and I didn't. I failed to mention the leader of this project for the library is our teen library specialist, Chelsea Troutman. In addition to working with teens, she is also on the children's library staff, and this has long been her goal for probably 4 years, to have a story walk in Natrona County. Our ultimate goal is, when this is installed, we would love to have several of these in outlying communities in the county, so that it's easily accessible to so many people. As I think Mr. Napier mentioned, the great legal minds between the city and the county are working on an MOU, and that will outline and detail some of the specifics that I know will be of concern to you. The library will be responsible for upkeep, for changing out the stories as regular as they need to be, for doing site inspections, installation, and upkeep. And in the MOU, I know it's going to address things like what happens if the library doesn't fulfill their needs, and then what recourse do you have. And I know that you're going to have that in front of you on paper. I'm just here to say this is an awesome opportunity to bring the first ever story walk to Natrona County. And really, this is a great investment in our youth, and I appreciate your consideration. And when the MOU comes to you, I ask for your favorable consideration on that. So I don't know if you have any questions. There's not a lot to tell about a story walk. It's get out, get outside, move, be together, and appreciate the outdoors, and expand your literacy. I'm sorry. So this is as long as I've talked in 2 days. So anyway, do you have any questions for me on the project?
I think there's a few, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. How often would those be changed out? I'm curious.
So in our original grant to the Humanities Council, we talked about maybe quarterly, but to be honest, because we haven't had one here, we really don't know. It's going to depend partially on how many people attend it. So if we have high usage, then we don't want to wait a whole quarter.
How would you know?
Well, one of the things that we're going to do is one of the last stanchion is going to have a QR code, and we have an opportunity there to provide with QR codes information for all partners. Or one of the QR codes is going to be a participation code. So they scan it, and then we're going to do an incentivation. So let's say you and your family go, At the end, you scan it, it automatically registers you for an incentive with the library. It may be something as simple as we had stickers made. And our sticker campaign is really going strong. And so we've had stickers made about the story walk. You scan that, you can come to the library, pick up a sticker, that gives us some very informal data, but it does give us some data.
Sure, thank you.
So we will change it at least quarterly. I anticipate it sometimes of the year, even more frequently than that.
Other questions for Lisa? Awesome. Sounds like a great program.
I'm so excited for this.
Thank you for coming. I hope you get to
Thank
feeling
you.
better.
I'm on the mend. I
Thanks,
appreciate you
Lisa.
all. Okay.
Take care. Thank you so
I'm
much.
off to K-Dub now. Good to see you.
Okay, moving along, investment in corporate bonds. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question that we have had for a little while now, and the research of which included visiting with the city attorney's office and ultimately visiting with the state treasurer and some of his representatives through the attorney general's office to determine whether or not cities and towns actually have the capacity currently to invest in corporate bonds. It turns out that the question was proven in the affirmative, that indeed cities and towns can participate in this method of investing. The challenge now that we have is determining the best policy approach to start to incorporate these mechanisms and utilities, if you will, into our investment strategy. And so what you have in front of you tonight, if of course you approve of this direction, is the policy statement that would allow us to pursue these types of tools and hopefully realize some positive gains as a result. If I may, Mr. Mayor, turn some time over to Ms. Johnson to walk us through some of the finer details of what this policy includes. I would sure appreciate it.
Sounds good. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you, Carter, for that great introduction. I actually have our financial advisor who is hanging out, waiting to talk to you all as well. Something that I would like to kind of have them explain to you all is really what the benefit is of having corporate bonds as a benefit to our investment policy. So they can talk a little bit about that and how they structure the language within the policy to be a little bit more restrictive than we have at the state level, but which could be very beneficial to the city as a whole. So if I could turn this over to Paul, and please introduce yourself and kind of give us an idea of a little bit about this type of investment, what kind of risk, what kind of benefit we could get from it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Paul McKean. I'm Portfolio Manager with First Interstate. And the reason we suggested the addition of corporate bonds to your investment portfolio is, bottom line, to increase the returns. Right now, the portfolio is limited to basically just to U.S. government bonds and agencies. Corporate bonds can add additional diversification and return. Typically, high-grade corporate bonds yield at least 1% a year more than U.S. Treasury bonds do. They do have some additional risks associated with them because of the credit component. With a bond, of course, essentially when you buy a bond, you are lending money to somebody. So if you buy a U.S. Treasury bond, you're lending money to the U.S. government, which is considered to be risk-free. If you buy a corporate bond, for instance, Apple Computer or some other company, you're lending money to that company. There is some chance that you won't get paid back. So the way we limit that risk is first and foremost by only investing in the very highest grade corporate bonds where there's very little credit risk, very little credit exposure. Also, we limit the maximum maturity of those bonds because, of course, as time goes on, things can change at a company. So by limiting it to a maximum of 5 years maturity, gives us more certainty about what the prospects for the company are. And then finally, we limit the maximum amount, well, not finally, but we also limit the maximum amount of corporate bonds in total within the portfolio to 20% of the investment portfolio. And then finally, we limit the amount invested in any single corporate issuer to 5% of that 20%. So that means limiting it essentially to 1% of the total portfolio. So we do think this is a prudent measure and a way to make a meaningful improvement in the returns for your portfolio.
Fantastic, thank you. Did you all have any questions on this type of investment or any of the language that we put into the investment?
Any questions for Jill or Paul or his team? Anybody? Yep.
So I was part of an initial conversation on this, and there was some interesting information that was shared during that discussion. I wonder if I could ask you, Paul, to tell us a little bit more about just how restrictive that A rating is and the confidence that you have in it, as well as kind of how the decision was made around that 20% cap.
Absolutely. So there are bond rating agencies that rate bonds based on the financial stability of the underlying issuer. And those ratings range from AAA, go down to AA, single A, and then they go to triple B, double B, single B, and so on down the alphabet. Investment grade bonds are considered to be any bond rated triple B or better. So an A-rated bond is above and beyond that sort of lower floor of what would typically be considered investment grade. So we feel that that provides some additional buffer. But on top of that, we do our own research on these companies to make sure that we're comfortable as fiduciaries that they are appropriate investments for you and the rest of our clients. And in terms of the 20%, I don't recall the conversation. It's been a few months. You're testing my memory now. If there was some particular reason for that, I think it's a very conservative number. 20% of the portfolio in corporate bonds. I don't recall if the statute had some play in that, Christine. No. Yeah. So sorry, I'm failing my memory test of how we came up with the 20%. But bottom line is, again, 5% in any one corporate issue of 20% is 1% of the portfolio. So that seemed like a very, very prudent level.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you, Paul and Christine, for joining us.
Since we're done, I do have.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. I hadn't realized we were done.
Yeah.
This would be addressed to Christine. Are you related to Brian?
I'm not sure, Mayor, Councilman. I don't know that I want to answer that. So I'm just kidding. Yes, he's my husband.
That's what I was wondering. And isn't he one of the primary officers at First Bank?
First State Bank, yes.
First State Bank.
Yes.
Do we see any kind of conflict between her husband being one of the principals in another bank and her managing our assets along with Paul?
I don't believe that there's any conflict. I mean, Christine has been managing our investments as a custodian for quite some time. She doesn't actually do any of the trades. That would be Paul, as the portfolio manager, would be doing the trades or purchasing the bonds.
Okay, it was just something I had to ask
Great
because
question.
the two of them are in very responsible positions, working in essence for competitors. So that was why I had to ask. Okay, thank you. And it was nothing personal.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Well, and furthermore, we actually have on our Finance Advisory Committee someone from First State Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And it is Brian, isn't it?
No, it's not, it's Kermit.
Oh, it's Kermit, yeah. But anyway, so we have a great working relationship, and he does that as in a volunteer capacity as part of our Finance Advisory Committee that I'm part of. So they would be truly privy to, if they really wanted to be, to any of our information anyway, through him. But, luckily we deal with people of integrity and confidentiality, so anyway.
Okay, any other questions?
Anything else?
Thank you both very much. So what we are requesting at this time is just to get your approval to move the investment policy forward for full council approval, hopefully at the next meeting.
Council ready to be okay with moving it forward? Great, thank you. For the approval, anyway. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, thanks,
Thank
Christine.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Project Safe Contracts Amendment. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is really a follow-up item for all intents and purposes with regard to our first attempt at designing and bidding some fairly significant renovations to City Hall. Council will recall that the initial renovations had major objectives at stake relating to security, relating to operational needs, pertaining to the mechanical systems, and of course dealing with ADA compliance and so on. Given that those bids with that particular scope came back in such a manner as to be out of reach with regard to the dollars and cents that we had set aside for this project, Council was okay with the idea of reshaping our scope and considering a different approach in order to try to get the majority of our objectives met while doing so with a more reasonable funding approach. And so our question to you tonight is twofold. First of all, whether or not you're comfortable with the reduced scope, and secondly, with regard to our taking another shot at this, given that it will include some additional expense from a design standpoint, design and bid standpoint, to keep this rolling and moving forward. And so those are fundamentally your questions this evening for your consideration. You've read the memo, you see where we're at primarily, but for additional detail, if I could turn the time over to Ms. Lopez to guide us through this, that would be very helpful.
Zulima.
Mayor, City Council, as the city manager indicated, we have been working on this project for quite a long time, and last March was able to bid out a project that unfortunately, despite the fact that we got 5 very competitive bids with each other, were significantly over budget, and so we were inclined to reject those bids and try again. So you may call it the original design scope, or the original design for the project was quite extensive. It had some key elements in that we had a pretty significant exterior site package that would address some of the security concerns. Exterior, create a nice welcoming plaza for our customers, a space for our employees to enjoy lunch or breaks, things like that. Also included climb deterrent for the exterior of council chambers here. Interior, though, probably the biggest component of the project was that the existing space here, which existing is bathrooms, our public restrooms, and then this meeting room and adjacent support space would actually be converted to house our customer service personnel, creating a situation where you have 2 public points of entry but a single point of contact before those people would be let into the remainder of the building. The intention is to control access to the other parts of the building for security's sake and for efficiency's sake in our operations. So this was the primary concept of the initial design, which met several of our objectives. In addition, though, we would add an addition to the building. This became the new council workspace, new council meeting room, new public restrooms, new lockers. That kind of space was here. And then some renovations throughout the remainder of the building just to accommodate the number of staff that we have in our operations. So this was a first floor design, very significant remodeling, a lot of construction and associated lighting, HVAC, etc. involved in that. So for the second floor, the primary components of the original design were to create some access points throughout the back offices for egress purposes. So we would construct this egress stairway because right now there's no way for people upstairs to get out in case of a fire or other emergency. And so we wanted to make sure that we created a mechanism for employees to get out of the building safely if they needed to. In addition to remodeling several of the spaces in order to accommodate the staff in those work groups, and also upgrading the restrooms upstairs to be ADA compliant as well. And then finally creating a centralized break room. Part of this project was to target efficiency, and so we wanted to eliminate the refrigerators and microwaves that are in individual offices right now and create a centralized place for people to break so that we could reduce those energy costs. So again, very comprehensive design that met every objective that we had for the project. Unfortunately, the price tag was a little too high for us to be able to entertain that. So now we're looking at significantly reducing the scope of the design, still hopefully meeting the primary objectives, but reducing that price tag to something a little more tolerable. So if I scroll up here. Oh yeah, sorry, already ahead of me, as usual. Okay, so in a very conceptual kind of way, we wanted to show you what the new scope sort of entails. So we're reducing the external package pretty significantly and applying a lot of city labor in terms of park staff doing some of the plantings and landscaping rather than having that outsourced. We've already done some demo work on the Russin to prepare that for its rehabilitation. And so there will be some exterior work, but it's a pretty reduced scope exterior of the building. In lieu of climb deterrent, we will look at other mechanisms to ensure the security of the upper floor if someone were able to get up there. So again, still meeting the security objectives, just a little bit different way to do that. These public restrooms would remain and just be upgraded to be ADA compliant. We would leave the south entrance and west entrances as employee-only entrances, creating the primary entrance for the public to be the east, so that from the east entrance, public could still access public restrooms, council meeting rooms, and then we would modify the downstairs meeting room as it exists now to become new council workspace. So still providing more functional council workspace for you guys, closer to the primary entrance for our public. And then really the majority of the design is really focused on moving operations that are very public intensive downstairs and restricting access to the upstairs to appointment only or at least more sort of regulated visits to the upstairs operations for security purposes. So, you know, this again is very conceptual. Things will be vetted more as design kind of dives in. But right now, some of the thought is that city clerks would remain downstairs, customer service and community development would be downstairs as our most kind of public-facing operations. Attorney's office would move upstairs as well as human resources. And so those are shown in the next. One more. Thank you. And so again, this scope requires significantly less interior remodeling, less plumbing work, still meeting the objectives of improving the HVAC as necessary, lighting for efficiency, and security improvements with hopefully much better results when we bid for construction. And with that, I would entertain any questions and have, you know, this has been a very large project and certainly has taken a team to undertake, and so the architect and Scott Baxter from City Engineering is also here to help me answer any questions that you may have.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Carter, this is for you.
Okay.
Before we as a council would authorize $184,000 to redo this yet again, for me, the money would have to be in place in order for us to facilitate it. Because spending that kind of money to get a new draft and not having the money to act on it again. And another year, we're going back and going, well, we don't have the money, we're gonna have to do this again, it's gonna be another $150,000. So until we have the actual money, or you have it somewhere, I have a really hard time buying into this. Just being honest.
Yeah, and so, Mr. Mayor, if I could, let's talk about money for a little bit, and for that, I'm gonna defer to Zulema. No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing.
Boy, way to throw some.
No, it's a very fair.
Are you?
It's a very fair question, very fair question. The good news is, council approved during the budget/amendment process to roll the existing funding that we have available for this project, kind of dog-eared for this project, into the fiscal 23 budget. And so there's $2.6 million available. That $2.6 million would be what we would access to pay for the redesign fees. It's also the funding that we would point to for the pre-purchase of air handlers for the facility, if you'll recall the approval you gave us there. I am not prepared to tell you, however, that indeed that remaining balance of the $2.6 million would be adequate to cover the full extent of even this revised version of the project. However, I do believe that with respect to the dollars and cents that are reserved for City Hall in 1 cent 17, that'll help us get a long way towards completing a target dollar amount. And we have a couple grant opportunities that we're really interested in that we think would fit very nicely with aspects of this project as well. And so I'm hopeful that council will let us take these steps to design a revised approach, because we still have very significant issues with this building that we got to deal with at some point in time, that if we can take from a comprehensive approach, even in a revised format, we're going to be dollars ahead to get done sooner than later. And so, yes, it is a little bit of a walk of faith, as it were, but I do think even if we come back with a similar total to what we have experienced already, we'll have a design that is workable, that is truncated, and deals with the major initiatives of this project to begin with, that we have got to face at some point in time regardless. And so I don't think it would be a lost cost, if you will, even if we still have to wait for another iteration at trying for bids a third time. Heaven forbid.
Other questions? Kyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question probably for Carter, I imagine. The auxiliary or kind of ancillary council meeting space, we're in it now. Sounds like the redesign would be the one over there beyond the staircase. Outside of city council work sessions, could you speak to the use of that building by city staff? How much use it gets?
Meeting space?
Yeah, like this meeting space right here. Outside of work sessions, how often are we using it? Thank you.
I appreciate the question, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Every meeting space in this building is used extensively. And that would certainly not change with regard to what it is we're proposing. Could we switch back to that revised version of the council workspace area? Yeah, so for clarity's purposes, the space in green is what we're talking about there, to the kind of the upper right-hand corner here. That space will be expanded to accommodate a great deal more citizens who want to come and observe this conversation, far more than what you see here today. And so, just to be real clear, that'll come in very handy from a staff perspective, because there are quite a few times where we have a number of larger meetings that being able to gather here in this building would be very beneficial and helpful. So meeting space is at a premium in this building already.
Thank you.
Other questions for Zulima, Carter, the team?
What becomes of this room?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Zulima, if you could point to that space right there, that space will largely remain unchanged. I'm hopeful that we can do something with the walls. And I know Lyle won't let us get away with keeping the same decor in here, but nonetheless, the space will be pretty much what we see here. Smaller tables in here probably, but still a very needed meeting space that we'll probably utilize. This piece right here will go away essentially for purposes of accommodating a restroom facility that the public would use. So this would be walled off. We wouldn't have access to that space except through the primary point of access and restroom needs. And so that, in a nutshell, is what would happen here.
Chai.
Thank you. So adjusted total budget you're estimating is now somewhere in the 4 to 4.5 million range.
Right.
And then construction estimated to begin spring of next year. No, bidding.
I would say, well, Zulima, can you clarify that for a
Yeah.
second, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor?
Mayor, council member. So, you know, in an ideal world, we would spend the rest of this fall and winter designing the project and go out to bid if funding is available in the spring. Obviously, we would have to secure the additional funding that's needed in order to do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Yeah, okay. Unless there's another one.
Nope.
You're good, okay. Zulima, where are we at with regard to some of the intermediate work that needs to be done around the Russin? Can you catch us up there?
Mayor, city manager. So right now, the parks team is working on a design to make as many permanent improvements as we can, understanding that when the rehabilitation work happens to the sculpture, we don't want to damage what we end up putting down and have to tear it out and redo it. So we're trying to find a balance of beautifying that space in a more permanent way, so that we're not throwing good money at bad, while also utilizing some of the available funding to offset the need for Project Safe. So we are in the process of, in fact, I have some schematics to share with the city manager tomorrow during our one-on-one. So.
Bring your checkbook to the meeting. Right, Carter?
I hope not.
I think it'll be elbow grease, but I'm
Anything else for Zulima? Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
So, Mr. Mayor, if council's okay with us taking another run at this, that would be all we really need to know pursuant to tonight's discussion.
Council, comfortable moving forward with that? Okay. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Moving at light speed. Meeting space discussion.
Mr. Mayor, this too is a follow-up item pursuant to a request from the City Council to converse more thoroughly about the venue by which council engages with the public. And I would suggest it's probably centered around the use of this room as compared to the use of the dais and the chambers, the main chambers, for the variety of public meetings that council has over time. And we thought it might be helpful to see what was envisioned moving forward with the new project, hopefully coming online at some point in time, to set the stage for that discussion a little bit. And with that, Mr. Mayor, we would entertain any questions and or directives pertaining to this topic.
Okay. Questions about this? I know, Kyle, you had kind of brought it up.
Yeah, were we about to look at something, or I don't want to jump the gun?
No, this is
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's it.
I got comments. All right. Well, I mean, it sounds like the potential redesign of City Hall is gonna, you know, this space will be repurposed, and it sounds like the intent is to have work sessions over in the space by the staircase, remodel it, expand it. So I'm totally on board with seeing the vision for that. But yes, I did bring this up because my concerns with this space as it sits is numerous. For instance, we've lost some people now, but as far as being able to social distance, especially leading into winter, gives me cause for concern because we can have like 20 people shoved in here and it feels very close, intimate, which isn't bad sometimes, but it's just very close. I don't know. It doesn't give us much opportunity to space out, and going into winter, I think that's important. You cannot hear the audio online, especially from those not seated around this table. As somebody who's had to remote in several times myself, and somebody who's fielded concerns from folks who try to watch our meetings, you just can't hear presentations. It's very, very hard to hear, especially people that are soft-spoken. It's virtually impossible. There's times I just, when I was trying to remote in, I could not hear our city attorney. And so that creates issues, I believe. You can't see the video presentations on the TV. And so I think that reduces people's ability to stay engaged and stay informed. I think the decorum is not often maintained. I think the casual atmosphere of this room leads to slipping of conduct amongst ourselves and amongst the public. We've had bystanders just get up and shout things, and that doesn't typically happen out in the meeting chambers, and I think it's because of the nature of this room that that sort of behavior gets lax, and people don't maintain the decorum that I think we should try to adhere to during all of our meetings. And in the case of the nonprofits, when we were talking 1 cent discussion, we were having a discussion about folks who had a very, they were very, I guess, interested in the outcome of those discussions, and we had the luxury of not even having to look at them when we were having those discussions, let alone listen to them or anything, which I understand doesn't happen in work sessions, but I think they should at least feel like their presence is acknowledged if they can't voice their concerns. So those are my concerns for this room. There's really nothing I like about it. So there may be good justification, and I'd be very interested to hear it, but when I draw a line down the middle of a paper and write pros and cons on each side, I can't come up with a single pro for this meeting room. I just personally think it's much more beneficial and advantageous for us and the public to have meetings in the chambers. It's just a lot better equipped. That's all I got.
Mr. Bankspear.
Thank you. Kyle, I appreciate all the time and effort you've put into that. No, truly I do. There's a couple points I'd like to make based on some things you said. I think one, you are absolutely correct. When we have a particular issue that requires a lot of people, I think we do need to move out in the room, and I think the mayor and city manager are on board with that. We spoke about that in leadership today, but when we have more people, we certainly need to be able to accommodate them. So I'm totally on board with that. A couple things with the decorum and the intimacy. When we're in work session, that's really where we get to face bounce things off each other more informally, in a closer setting. And to me, that intimacy and maybe a little bit less decorum is more appropriate when we're trying to work out a lot of these things. For me, it's more comfortable. I like the ability to look across the table and not across the room when I want to talk to somebody, and be able to bounce those ideas off of each other. I think work sessions are exactly what they are. They're work sessions, and I don't know that we have to be as prim and as proper as we do when we're in an actual council meeting, because I just think this gives us a better way to deal with each other. That's just my opinion. And I understand your concerns about winter, but winters have come and gone over the years, and so is the flu, and we can always wear a mask and do the things that we personally feel we need to do to protect ourselves. But out there, we're still sitting right next to each other, regardless of how it is. I may not be as close to you, but you're going to be as close to Lisa or whatever. So I don't know. I like this setting for working, but that's just me. So you wanted some pros. I was trying to give you the ones I thought of.
I appreciate it.
Amber.
Thank you. I actually do agree with that for the workability and the conversation. These meetings are much more conversational and this is much easier, facilitates that much better. I do think your concerns about everything else, though, I agree with, about not being able to accommodate enough people in here, which I'm very comfortable moving out if we need to. But the AV, I think, is a significant concern, and has caused problems before, and I don't know if we have a solution. I mean, looking at the design, like that would solve both problems, right? Because we've got a more intimate table setting, but lots of seats for people to be in, and probably better, more updated AV and capabilities there. But in the meantime, if we have a solution for to better facilitate people calling in, to better facilitate, I don't know if we need to be mic'd in here to make it so that you can hear the audio better, but it has been a problem for, I think there was a work session that I was on that I had to call in for, that I was like,
Can't hear
there's
it.
not a point of me even being here,
Yep.
because I have no idea what's going on
Yep.
in that meeting at all. So I do think that is a problem, and that probably is solvable in the interim. Yeah, I mean, but maybe not for too much. I mean, but I like the conversational nature of these meetings. I think it's important to be, because we don't really have the opportunity to do that outside of this, right? It has to be public if we're gonna be talking about any of this stuff. But I do think there's a difference between conversational versus presentational, which is what we're doing out there.
So okay, I'll say really quickly too, so on that point to the microphone and sound system, Carter is working on that. So I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all.
I certainly can. I do agree that the audio in this room is more challenging than out there, and without a doubt, we have a mixture of complaints, one of which is, you can tell when people are eating nuts.
I'm very self-aware of how loud I eat watching these meetings.
To all the way to, it's a continuum. All the way to, we can't hear the attorney, and sometimes I have a problem hearing the attorney regardless of the room we're in. His low tone is hard to pick up sometimes. But I will tell you, a solution for the audio is imminent for this room, and it is one of those solutions that we can migrate to the new room, as it were, once we move into a bigger space and assuming we can do the project and so on. So it would not be a lost cost, a sunk cost that we don't get back to upgrade the audio in here. I am really curious about your comments pertaining to the monitor and the data on the monitor being available to our viewing public. I think that's something we can tackle as well. If those are issues that are deal killers, I would suggest they don't have to be, because I'm pretty sure we can work through those relatively easily.
My take would be a couple different things. So if in the event we see a surge of COVID, we can make that recommendation and go by that case to find out how we want to move out there, if we want to do those things. If we see high numbers, we can make recommendations for masking in here. I think it's personal choice, obviously. But I think we need to take that case by case, especially if a surge does come, which there will probably be a small surge, I imagine, in the fall, winter, as they're predicting. Size of meetings, again, we can take those case by case scenarios. I think we couldn't go out there. I agree. We should have gone out there probably for the nonprofit conversation. Hindsight, obviously. And so I think for this case, we have done it before where we've gone out and met large groups. And so we can do that, and that will be, if we expect a large group, we can make that happen, that we're out there so they can be a part of that conversation or hear the conversation, obviously. And then my final point would just be, as well, this is more informal space. And so the informality of it really dictates for the conversation the word work. And the work session really takes place with the relationship of doing this here. And when we were doing, when the pandemic first hit and we had to sit out there, it was miserable because you just lost that obvious opportunity to sit and talk to somebody, or even for me to even lean over to Carter and say, can you clarify that, or are we on the right track? And so, not to say that as mayor and whoever has the opportunity to sit in the seat again, having that opportunity to sit next to the city manager as mayor, and Kaneen can say this because she was the mayor several times, knows that you go hand in hand, and you've got to figure out some things that I can't follow, and I'm just trying to figure that out. So that helps. So the relational key piece of the work session really is about this, and kind of what Bruce said, looking across the way and saying, hey, what do you guys think, or whatever else it is. So I think that's really what it is, and it sounds like the next step is going to be a new space.
Yeah.
That's going to accommodate size. Sound's going to be better as well, and be able to do those things. So, yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? Carl?
Did you raise your hand?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, a couple thoughts. Appreciate everyone's input. I would agree. I will add one pro to the list. I do appreciate the closeness, the more intimate setting it does allow. It allows for a different sort of interaction. Most of us don't get the opportunity to speak outside these meetings, and so it does provide a different dynamic, which I do appreciate. The AV is really the deal killer for me. Some of the other things are more of an aside. I think we are doing a disservice to the public if they cannot hear what we're discussing in these meetings. I think we're doing a disservice to the public, and so until we come up with that AV solution, I'm still going to advocate that we need to be meeting out there because it's so terrible. I mean, there's times you can't hear anything, and I just think, I already said it, we're doing a disservice by folks not being able to hear what we're doing and see what we're doing. So going back to the closeness and relational aspect of it, that is a pro for me in some sense, but one of my concerns was the lack of decorum, and I would agree with Councilman Nell that maybe it should be a little bit more lax in this sort of atmosphere, but I also still think it's important that we show respect to our colleagues by not talking over each other, by, I think one of the points of decorum that we should maintain is asking for the mayor for recognition to speak. That's something that we lose a lot in this, and I think it leads to convoluted and messy conversation at times. So that's one thing I still think we should maintain even in this room. And then just, I would ask, sometimes the side chatter is just, it's a respect thing to me. When we have a presenter or one of us is talking at the table and there's a bunch of side chatter going on, especially if it's loud and distracting, I think that's disrespectful. I think it's hard to pay attention to the presentation that we're hearing from. And so I would just ask that if we do stay in this room, that we just, show respect towards each other. When somebody has the floor, respect that. That's all I have to have. And I'm glad to hear that whatever AV solution we come up with can be put forth in the other room.
So I would ask the council to maintain that. I will say though, from a personal aspect, I have had conversations where I'll say, hey, make sure you ask and follow the decorum and the order of that. I call you by your first name in this room because out there is formal, and so because I consider you colleagues and in here, so there will be a less formality here. If a mayor wants to sit in this chair and make it more formal, besides it's not me, then that may be their choice. But in this room, it's going to be an informal opportunity to do that. As far as decorum, I guess I have to disagree. I guess I haven't seen unless I am wrong, I haven't seen terrible decorum, a separation of that. And if I'm wrong in that, I feel like this council, I mean, if we need to get back on track, we'll get back on track, but I haven't seen a major problem in that. So, but if that's the case, please keep your side conversations quiet as possible. Please do that as well to address me before you speak as well. And I try to keep a running list. I usually forget Lisa. Generally, I don't know why. I just tend
She'd be on my side on this issue.
But I'll try to do a better job also of making sure I keep that running list. I picked that up actually from Keneen. Keneen used to keep a list of who was next to speak, and when I was her vice mayor, I saw her doing it one time, and I'm like, that's a good idea. So I'll make sure to keep that as well. But if there is levels of that decorum or issues in this room, please let me know. But I want to let you know too, it's going to be less formal when I talk to you in this room, and I'm going to call you by your first name because out there I'll call you by your, you were elected to that, and so that's. But if you feel like you need to be called by council member in here, please let me know. I'm more than willing to accommodate that. So, Amber.
I have a question. I know, like, in the formal meeting, if something feels like it's getting off track, we can say point of order. Can we get back to meeting rules or whatever? Is it the same procedure in here if somebody is noticing that we're we're getting off track or something is, we're not following the rules that we've set forward, is it just a
So-
similar process or?
No, and I think what it is in here, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is a meeting, just a set work session. There's no Robert's Rules of Orders, there's no policy towards this, in this room, correct?
Correct.
And I would be hesitant to create policy in a workflow in that sense. We have our agenda. I'd be hesitant to make it much more formal and tight in that sense. I mean, if the council would want to, in that sense, Amber, but I don't think there's anything to fall back on, is there, John?
Just raising it, I mean, it's so informal, just, Mayor, could we get back on track here, we're killing a lot of time. I've seen that happen a lot here, and it seems to work, usually.
It does. It does, yeah. Steve?
Sitting around this table is much more conducive, as been pointed out by several people here, to work session. And to me, this reminds me, there's only 9 of us here, 10, but on my flight crew, there were 11 of us. When we were in the hangar, it was captain, lieutenant commander, whatever. When we got on that plane and were in the air, it was, hey Dave, we need to do this. All of that went away, because that was work. And they didn't care about it. They weren't worried about the titles. They were interested in getting the job done. And that's what this is all about here, is getting the job done and getting to a place where we can come to a consensus. And to me, having to call everybody Councilman Gamroth or Councilman Humphrey or Councilman Nell gets a bit cumbersome when you're trying to conduct down-to-down, nuts and bolts work.
Vice Mayor and then Kyle.
Thank you. I think you're hitting on something that is correct, because I've been guilty of it myself. I speak out of turn a lot. In fact, you got on me one time and said, hey, you need to, address the mayor, and since you did that, I've not done that. I don't think. I've tried to be much more mindful and cognizant of how I conduct myself in these, even in here. So I think what you're talking about is just more of a respect, you're not asking people to call you Councilman Gamroth in here. You're asking You're asking people to not have side conversations where you can't hear what's going on. You're asking people to not talk over each other and interrupt the way I used to do it. And I think that's fair, and I think it's appropriate, and I do like the fact that this is informal. I do think we've had some really good discussions in here, and I think they're better in here than they ever are out there, because we have this ability to do this. But I do think there are certain ways that we should be doing it, like you said, and not interrupting each other, not talking and stuff. So I totally get your point and agree with it.
Joy.
Oh, I thought I was gonna be in line. I was like writing down my thoughts.
No, you're good.
I guess just to weigh in quickly, I think I also appreciate the informality. I honestly think better in here where like the pressure's off and you're just kind of around people, and I
might
like
get you in
being-
trouble though, man.
I
reported on Oil City News sometimes. I'm like, you probably would have said that in the real meeting.
Well, no, I mean like actually thinking about the I don't know, like I like being on literally the same floor as our people around us. So I appreciate that, but I agree with the tech issues in particular, and making sure that we're serving the community and making sure that they are getting the same access to information that we are. So I was just curious, you said imminent. You did not say imminent. You said the word the right way. Do you have a sense of like how quickly that problem will be solved?
From the audio standpoint, Fleur, do you happen to have a report lately as to what you've heard as to when this is?
So basically with the options, the third option, I think they could get started on it with pending our funding. After we just use, we could get it started. I don't know how long it would take.
Okay.
But no, we don't have a set date that it would be completed.
Mr. Mayor, I think that would be homework I'd gladly take. Make sure that you have a definitive timeline as to the completion of the audio situation. I think in terms of switching, from monitor view to people view, as it were, I think that is just figuring that out and incorporating that into our practice, which really doesn't have a timeline, so to speak. I'd say the hardware is probably more of what we're more worried about as far as the timeline is concerned. But I'll get back to you.
And hopefully what we can do is, 'cause I know I chatted with Renee really quickly. I came in early to do some work, and I was in here, and she had just said that there was a couple complaints from some people trying to watch one of the council meetings and that they couldn't hear. And so if we could be mindful, just to try to do best until we can get this resolved, to make sure that you're speaking as clearly and as as best you can, until we kind of get this figured out, so we can make sure that that happens. They can hear. I'll follow up and make sure that if there are the complaints, but hopefully in the next month or so we can get this resolved. If we have to throw out an idea, about a month, do you think, Carter?
I would hope it wouldn't be that long.
It'd be sooner than that. Okay.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Mr. Mayor, we are not without problems out there as well as it relates to audio. I have definitely been on Zoom out there and have had times where I've just had to sit back and wait for my name to be called for a particular question. So audio issues are those that just haunt us from time to time, regardless of what room. And so my commitment to you is making sure audio is not an issue anywhere we go in this building when it comes to communicating with the public. And so regardless of where we end up, I really don't want problems as it relates to broadcasting and people being able to hear. So please be aware of that wherever we end up.
So ultimately, I think what we can take away from this conversation, I think that it sounds like the work is being done on the audio,
Yes.
being mindful and respectful of people while we're here, and I tend not to be a drill sergeant, and so I know I told Bruce to when he was doing that, and he's done a great job of making sure that he's been mindful of the. But I do lose order sometimes of people where they're at, and so I'll make sure to be mindful. Like I chose Amber over Steve only because I like Amber. And there's really just kidding. But make sure that I've got you. But from time to time, give me a little grace. I tend to lose order of people as I'm going along, and I'm going to try to make amends with Lisa when she gets back, so I can get that done. Steve.
I didn't think you would continue to hold a grudge because I always beat you to your house.
That is true.
After
You
these
do.
meetings. I mean, geez.
That is true. Any other questions or comments? Kyle, do you feel like you're on the right path? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everyone's
You bet.
comments. My one last thought would just be, I don't know if it's feasible at all, but 360-degree cameras are a thing now. So if we can give the public any greater sense of control over their participation in online meetings, I think that'd be cool.
cool
Again,
idea.
it might not work, but those are a thing now. So we'd just love to explore that possibility.
You have to start wearing pants.
Right? Thankfully, they're not X-ray or nothing, so you can still.
One of the ways I tend to also try to, I've always said that I try to be just the chair of this board, basically, is just an open conversation and communication. Kyle has brought it to my attention before. He's like, oh man, we got to bring this up. And so having that conversation and being able to disagree on certain items, but also to understand that I think we do ultimately respect each other. And we think with Michael and Kaneen coming in and understanding their role and coming in and doing that has been very good. And so I feel very confident about this council as we move forward. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kyle.
Yep.
Appreciate your comments, their thoughtfulness, and work on that. So,
Thanks for the time.
so pending, we will find out where we're at. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Gender review. Have anything further for us?
Right. Just a couple things to bring to your attention for some of our upcoming meetings. We are anticipating a follow-up discussion on 3 items in pre-meeting next week, and well, actually it's 4 items, I'm sorry. And accordingly, we would suggest that pre-meeting probably ought to start a little early. because I think these conversations would challenge our punctuality to start the regular meeting otherwise. So if council's comfortable with this agenda, so to speak, for pre-meeting next week, we will ask that we start early, as you can see designated on the grid document here for the 20th.
So is everybody okay with starting at 5 next Tuesday?
Yes.
Steve?
I can make it at 5, but I would greatly appreciate in the future on the third Tuesday of the month that we don't start them at 5 because the chamber meets at 4, and to be the liaison with the chamber and then try to make it here cuts it close.
You have a fast car.
Right? Yeah.
But there are people with blue cars that have these funny lights on top of them that don't like that.
Oh, come on.
Anything else on agenda, Carter?
Well, Mr. Vice Mayor, if it would help, 5:15 could probably be just fine too.
We'll go ahead and for what I see, I think we
Okay.
need the 5 o'clock.
Okay,
So,
no problem.
yeah, I will make it work.
Very good,
But
very
just-
good.
You could send the alternate. They would be on that.
I think you need to be here more than I do.
Oh, no.
But yeah.
Mr. Mayor, for the 20th, we also have the conversation coming back to the floor as it relates to the North Platte River Park subdivision rezoning question. And that's the area around the Ford Wyoming Center that is proposed to be rezoned from park historic to a much more flexible zoning to hopefully stimulate private development in the area in concert with the Wyoming Sports Complex being eventually constructed there. You notice that the lease for the indoor sports complex is shaded, or at least it is on my document, maybe not on yours.
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Okay, maybe not
Yeah,
for
yeah.
all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
on the back here, it is shaded.
Oh, we're on the back page?
Well, some may be, depending on what, yeah, there
At
we go.
least, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That item is actually moving, as I understand it, to the first meeting in October. And I think that is really just try to button up some of the final issues. We need just a couple more weeks' time. And so that's one of the more significant changes, because that's obviously a big agreement that you all have seen and anticipated probably before now. The item with regard to Jill's discussion earlier is also slated for the 20th as it relates to the investment policy changes that you just heard about. Moving to the 27th, you can see we've got a full agenda for that evening. A lot of conversation that we hope to move the needle with you on. For the 4th, aside from what I just referenced, a couple other follow-up items for the pre-meeting to bring back to council. The life jacket program, some of you had questions about. That's a really good opportunity to debrief our life jacket season and that program and so forth. Now, we were hoping to get in some water safety plugs as well, particularly as it relates to the river, because there were some questions about that too. We want to give you some exposure to the financial reports that Jill's been working very hard on and is ready to roll out to you and the public. We've already had the opportunity to visit with the Finance Committee that some of you have participated in already. And in fact, I'm kind of excited to go through that with you on the 4th. We've got another work session coming up on the 11th. You'll notice some headliner items there that you've been awaiting as well. I am hopeful that we won't actually go to 10 p.m. that evening, but it's very possible, as our work session agendas are pretty darn full between here and probably the rest of the calendar year, honestly. Moving to the back page, the future agenda items page, is for the purpose of giving a heads up to the council as it relates to some of our meetings on the horizon that haven't been quite docketed yet. these are items that council will often bring up, but need time to sort of develop as it relates to materials and information we're trying to put together to present a good discussion for the council, typically in this format. And so if there are items that you don't see on this list or that need to be added, now was a good time to have that conversation, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. Anybody have anything they want to see on there? I know we're getting kind of packed in the work sessions, but don't be afraid to keep adding stuff too, obviously. Yeah, Kyle.
Thank you. Not a question about future agenda items. I just wanted to clarify our October 4th meeting, emergency response vehicle. I imagine that's in regards to the armored vehicle for the police department, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Any items you guys want to consider? Seen anything? Just in general, the next meetings or so? Okay. I think that's it, Carter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Are you guys feeling crunched, trying to put all that stuff on the work sessions for you? Just to have be candid?
It's a good challenge to have because that means things are moving, discussions are happening that need to happen and are timely, and so I wouldn't express any concern about it, but just more of a heads up that yeah, things are a little jammed up right now, but that's okay, not a problem.
Somebody better be bringing pizza on that 10 o'clock meeting.
We can do that, absolutely. We can do that.
If council does want to think about it, if it's going to be a real late meeting, we can talk about that if we need to. I think a couple times we can probably have some dinner or something as well. We can talk about it. Maybe we can think about it. Popcorn.
Did you say beer?
Yes, I did.
That might be a problem.
You caught part of it.
I thought that's what you said, but I don't know if that's a good idea.
Great. Alrighty, anything on the legislative front, Carter, that you need to fill us in?
Mr. Mayor, we've had a number of committee meetings here in Casper recently. The new state building is proving to be a really nice gathering in the center of the state for a lot of the committee meetings that we typically have to travel, to every corner of the state to catch. So that's been really nice. Accordingly, we have a lot of access to those conversations. The access that I would highlight to you right now as a part of this report would be as it relates to alcohol legislation. I can't remember what we talked about the last time as a part of this item, but we are seeing some additional conversation as it relates to added fees for cities, I should say increased fees for cities and towns when it comes to new issue retail licenses that a city or town may be receiving from the state. We're also seeing some opportunity as it relates to the tavern entertainment license, which is a new license, a unique license that would accommodate the growth of business that we're seeing. As an example, the axe throwing business where folks typically want to have alcohol when they throw their axes. And simulators, golf simulators. Alcohol is typically of interest in those environments as well. The tavern entertainment license would give cities and towns an additional opportunity to expand business opportunities along those lines that some feel very limited and unable to accommodate right now. The other legislation that is gaining some traction is along the lines of bar and grill licenses. Many of you are very familiar with that conversation, as we've had a number of conversations about bar and grill licenses in the sense of awarding those and getting some of those back from time to time. The idea is that those numbers would be increased for cities and towns to issue, and to the point where over time, as the legislation is written right now in draft form, those licenses would ultimately be unlimited for cities and towns after a period of, I think, 10 years is what the legislation suggests right now. So there's obviously a lot that can happen between now and the time the session ends in March next year. But nonetheless, we're seeing some real interesting traction in that discussion at the very least. And that's all I have for that particular item.
Great. Any questions about legislature? Okay. Alrighty. Council around the table. Keneen, we'll start with you.
Sounds like health department might actually be Thursdays. I had a little carpal tunnel surgery Thursdays.
Okay.
Might miss it, but I'll still touch base with the director.
Perfect. Are you sure, Keneen?
Skinny, yeah.
Okay.
It should be a simple surgery.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Other than that, so happy to be here with you guys. You almost had me convinced to
What's that?
to like switch to out
Oh.
there. And when I was
I'm very
there, I was
persuasive.
dead set against it.
Yeah. Kyle.
I just went to Kids Fest at the Ford Wyoming Center over the weekend. Had a really good time, so congratulations for another good event up there. And then just last week we had some WHAM board meetings. Had our board meeting Friday during the day, and then our regional meeting Friday at 5:30, so that was fun. We discussed work on Amendment A, which is, I think we discussed that earlier. Well, no, not quite, but that's essentially municipalities being allowed to invest the same as the state. 4 liquor bills, Carter went into a few of them. 4 of them would be higher fees to the municipality, making those licenses non-transferable, giving municipalities more control over the number of bar and grill licenses and tavern licenses. And then there was some interim legislative discussions on housing in the state and some other relevant issues. So those are all, it's interim, so I imagine we'll get some more kind of concrete updates as we get a little bit closer to the next session, but just conversations we continue to have at WHAM. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Amber.
Thank you. I just want to bring attention to a grant opportunity that David Street Station has right now. If you attended any of the free live music events over the last many years, they've got an opportunity to have $90,000 in matching funds over the next 3 years to help support those free concerts. So I'd encourage everybody to go to their Facebook page or website or get on their newsletter so that there's a public voting element to it to keep them in the top consideration for that grant. So obviously it would be immensely helpful to have those matching funds to help. The concert lineups have been getting better and better. So please, if you have enjoyed that at any point, or even if you haven't and just think it's a good idea, please take the time. I think you can vote every day. So please take the time to get there and make sure that we're supporting those programs and funding opportunities for them. I think that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
Just thank everybody for, especially Amber and Carter, for getting us up to date on stuff so that we're ready to run and deal with what's coming up.
Awesome. Good. Jack.
I don't have anything tonight. Thanks.
Steve.
The concert Thursday night at Ford Wyoming Center was good. That was Cody Johnson was the big headliner. So that was a good concert Thursday night. And went to CNFR meeting last night. Get the right book. Basically, this year, gross revenue was, they had never hit 300,000 before, and they hit 364 and change. They were down, didn't have to give out near as many comp tickets by almost 1,300. Or no, that was ticket sales, yeah. The final night performance, they were only 330 seats from being sold out on the finals night. Let's see, they were up on season tickets. They had in excess of 30,000 seats occupied through the event. So this was their best year ever, this last year, and hoping to improve on that. And speaking of improving on that, it is next year with Bulls, Bronx, and Breakaway will be on the 11th, with then Slack on the 12th and the morning of the 13th. First evening performance will be the 13th of June. Softball tournament will be on the 14th, which, do you want me to get with you, or do you want me to get with you, or is there somebody you want me to get with? Okay, I'll get with you. But I figured I'll just bring it up right now and see where I need to fit into the organization. So I'll get with you next week if that works, or later this week anyhow. And that's all I had.
Thanks, Steve. Vice Mayor.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Great. So just a couple things. I have the Boys and Girls Club breakfast tomorrow. The Wyotown Town Mayor will be giving the proclamation. I'll introduce that young lady who is a middle schooler, 6th grader at CY, Mayor Cage. So I'll be looking forward to announcing her and letting her give the proclamation at the breakfast tomorrow. Mayor Commissioner breakfast Thursday. So we'll be there at that. Bruce is excited about those early morning meetings.
That's a lie.
he's really been enjoying that role. So, yeah.
Do we have a full table at the breakfast in the morning?
Do you know Carter?
We've got us two, and if you, it sounds like you're
I'm
sitting up
sitting
on
up
the,
at the top,
yeah,
yeah.
so it sounds like it's just us two.
Do you have another ticket then?
Yes, sir.
We need to have the city table full, and so that's why.
I think it would be good, Steve, if you showed.
What time is it?
6:30.
Oh,
Right
I'm sure.
here. Doors open a quarter after.
Yeah, when?
Wanna be there.
Quarter after
Seven,
6.
seven, yeah.
I've already politely declined.
So we, yes,
My
yes.
regrets.
the
and
answer
if you
is
thought
yes.
it was super important, I would go, but
No.
you don't think it's super important,
Walk
so
in
I'll
and
just stay home.
You're good.
Say I'm
Sleep.
I believe
Cut.
that.
Let me get Jolene to help us.
Kyle will be there and Steve will be there and Carter.
Perfect.
So that'll be good. So,
Go get 'em, boys.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that. Looks like there's an LGBTQ meeting on Friday. So
Yes, I will.
what's that? You'll be
I
there?
will be there.
Perfect.
That deadline.
Thanks. I think that's all I got. I really appreciate the conversation tonight. Appreciate it, Kyle, for the open conversation. It's always important to continue to do that. And one of the things I'm learning is it's called my growth edge. And growth edge is avoidance, meaning you're worried about having those tough conversations. And sometimes tough conversations are good in a growth edge. And so it helps you to grow in your growth mindset as well. So that's your little counseling for tonight that everybody gets from me. So.
That just put me on the edge.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.